Brian, you have been a student of success, I guess, for 40 years.
Yes.
And you've written that success is predictable.
Right.
And I know the way you analyze things that you've got to have a great explanation for us. What do you mean by success is predictable? And if I'm someone seeking that, what are some of the key things I need to be doing, looking out for, whatever?
Well, if you go into the kitchen to cook a dish and the very first thing you get is a recipe, and you follow the recipe and you work with the recipe, eventually you'll master that dish. Once you've mastered it and made it a few times, you can make the dish over and over again and you'll remember the recipe. You don't have to keep going back to the recipe book. Now, if somebody says, boy, that's really delicious, you don't say, well, it's a miracle, like something out of voodoo. No, you just followed a proven recipe that had been worked out by people before you. And that's basically the secret of success. If you want to be successful in starting a business, then you study what people have learned, and everything that people have learned they've written down or shared in seminars or put onto audio programs is, I learned this from a very wise man named Kopmeyer, who spent more than 50 years studying success. And he had developed more than 1,000 success principles that he had derived out of something like 6,000 books. And when I met him, I asked him the question you would ask. Of all these 1,000 principles, because I'd studied it all, which is the most important principle of all? And he said, Brian, he said, it's simple. He said, use proven success methods. He said, learn from the experts. He said, Brian, you'll never live long enough to learn it all for yourself. So what I find is that successful people are those who learn from others who've gone before them. Unsuccessful people try to make it all up, like a cook going into the kitchen, taking ingredients out of the cupboards, throwing them all in a bowl, and wondering why it doesn't taste good. This is why people's sales careers, why 80% of salespeople are functioning well below their potential. Only 20% make all the money. Why 20% of businesses in any industry make all the profits. Why 20% of the professionals in any service make 80% of the money, and so on, is because they follow proven success principles, proven recipes, proven formulas, proven combinations, and they just do them over and over again until they master them. Then they can do more and more of them, faster and faster, easier and easier, at a higher level of quality. And all that translates into greater results.
Kind of following up on that, obviously what it says to me, if I'm going to get the recipe for success, I'm going to have to find some people who already have mastered the recipe, so to speak. This morning, you talked about getting around the right people and how important that was, which sounds like kind of the same thing. I find the recipe from the right people. Outside of seminars like this, where are some places that if I'm looking for the right people, where can I find the right people? Where am I going to go find them at?
Well, there's two or three parts of that. First of all, we are where we are and what we are because of the choices and decisions that we have made in the past. Choices and decisions with regard to the jobs we take, the people we work with, the people we marry, live with, socialize with, the investments we've made, the uses of our time, and so on. We are where we are and what we are because of our choices and decisions. So the starting point of change in our life is to make new choices and decisions, which requires that we stop making old choices and decisions that are not helping us. In other words, to get into something new, you've got to get out of something old. To start associating with positive people, you've got to stop associating with people who are not helping you. And in many cases, people realize they're going to have to break off old friendships, break out of relationships. I've seen this happen countless of times. Quit jobs, stop associating with negative family members who are constantly critical. You're going to have to reorient yourself to more positive people. Now, the third principle that's so important is this, is that there's a law of attraction in the universe that says that you attract into your life people and circumstances in harmony with your own thinking. So if you start to read really good material, set goals, commit to your own personal development, strive to become good at what you're doing, listen to positive audio programs, associate with positive people like at this seminar, what happens is you set up a force field of energy that is invisible, but it attracts into your life people, circumstances, possibilities, opportunities that would not have been there in the absence of your own changed thinking. So all three conspire. Stop making bad decisions, start making good decisions, start associating with people who encourage you, are in harmony with what you think, and then trust to this law of attraction to bring the right people into your life.
I know you've written about that and the power of thinking, the power of thought. I've begun to make those changes in my life. I'm very serious about it. I'm very dedicated by it. But I'm surrounded by some unsupportive people that I'm not ready to end a relationship with. Maybe a spouse. Maybe it's because in the past I haven't followed through on some of the things and they think this is just another one of those things. What would you suggest I do? How do I keep that proper balance? For instance, in my thinking, being positive, and at the same time I'm someone very close to me that can have a negative impact. What do I do until that person comes around?
Well, there's the natural tendency when we hear or learn something great is we want to convince everybody else of it. All right, and you see this, people who quit smoking suddenly want there to be no smoking in the world. People who adopt a religion or a political philosophy want everybody to join the next day. But the very best thing, as I mentioned earlier in our seminar, is that you must teach men at the school of example, for they will learn at no other. So what you need to do is be an example. And be an example for an extended period of time. Give yourself 2-3 months, maybe a year, of being the new person. When you go on a diet, don't insist that everybody else go on a diet the next day. Actually go on the diet, stay on the diet, lose the weight, achieve the level of financial fitness, and attract people so they come to you and say, what is it that you're doing? Or what is it that you're reading? Or what is it that you have that makes you different? Only then, when they reach out, do you offer to them. The flip side of this is that in the main, people don't change. You can change, and you'll find it much easier to change if you're with positive people. Very hard to change with people who don't want you to change, who want you to be the person that you are. But in the main, people don't change. So sooner or later in life, you're often going to have to make some hard choices. In the short term, be the person. As Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world. Be the kind of person that you want to see. And if that does not bring people around, then be prepared to go to the next step. Be prepared to walk away.
Something interesting that you've taught on that I found remarkable was you said that if you write a goal down, increase your chances of success by 1,000%.
By 10 times.
Overwhelming. Yes. Now, next to that, when it comes to goal setting, what's the most important thing I do? I've got it written down. Obviously, that's got power if it's going to increase my odds of success 10 times. What's the next thing, the next biggest thing in that process?
Well, there's a process which has made more people rich than any other single process of goal achieving. And it's to take your major goal and structure it as a question. If your goal is to earn $100,000 a year, then you write, how can I earn $100,000 in the next 12 months? Now, that's an open-ended question, not how can I earn it at my job or doing a specific thing, just an open-ended question, how can I earn the amount of money? And then you discipline yourself to write 20 answers to the question. And the 20 answers are all the different things that you could think of to earn $100,000. Work longer, work harder, upgrade my skills, get a new job, take a part-time opportunity. Whatever it happens to be, write down everything you could think of, but force yourself to write at least 20 questions or 20 answers to the question. The 20 question method, called mindstorming, forces you to dig deep into your mind, where you will find all your answers. And it may be call a person, read a book. Let me give you an example. We had a young fellow, entrepreneur, he got 35 years old. He'd built a successful business. He'd worked about 10 years to do it. And he, for 2 years, wanted to sell his business so he could take a year off and travel, enjoy his money. And so for 2 years, he just sort of floundered around like a fish on the dock, wanting to sell his business. Nobody offered to buy it. He suggested it to people. People were not interested, and so on. And in this exercise that they put him through, his 20th answer, and often it's the 20th answer that is the breakthrough, was buy a book on how to sell your own business. And it just went off like a flashbulb in his mind. At the break, he got up. It was a downtown hotel. Got up, went down to the street to a major bookstore, went and found he was amazed at the number of books that had been written on how to buy and sell a business. So he bought 2 or 3 books. 2 months later, he had restructured, packaged his business, sold it completely, satisfactorily, and took a year off. He said, but it was just a single idea. It was a breakthrough idea. But it was so simple. Just get a book on the subject. And you think, boy, that's pretty obvious, yes? But it's the most obvious answers that we overlook.
I know that you've built a lot of companies. I know you've coached a lot of people who've built great companies. You've been an inspiration and mentor to a lot of people. I'm a person who I've gone through maybe perhaps your goals exercise, but you have a very thorough goals exercise. I've put my goals down. I've got all the objectives and the tasks lined out, and I just can't seem to get started. And 90 days pass by, and I still haven't gotten started. Now I'm at the point where I'm starting to beat myself up and all. What's the key after I've got the mechanics, so to speak, in place? What can I look for? Where can I look for to get started?
This is one of the biggest of all challenges. It's procrastinating on starting on a major goal. And the way that you overcome it, one of many ways, is you break the goal down into as many small steps as you possibly can. You make a list of every single step that you're going to have to take to achieve the goal. From the first one of clearing your desk, or reading a chapter in a book, or making a phone call, or working out a financial plan. So what you do is you break it down into small enough steps. Henry Ford said the biggest tasks in the world can be accomplished if broken down into enough small steps. And once you've broken it down into enough small steps, just do one step. Say, now of all of these steps, there are 5-minute, 10-minute steps. Of all of these steps, what would be a good place to start? And then you do just one thing. And maybe the next day you do just one more thing. And what happens within the mind is there's a natural momentum that once you get into the rhythm, you start to move forward. And pretty soon you're doing the next step and the next step and the next step and so on. I had a good friend who had for years wanted to write a business book. And he was working from 7 or 8 in the morning till 9 or 10 o'clock at night. He never had the energy to write it. So he finally said, I'm going to write this book, so I'm going to write it 1 page at a time. So he rescheduled his life, so he came home earlier, went to bed by 9 o'clock, got up at 5 o'clock, and wrote 1 page. That's all. By the end of the year, he had a 350-page book. And he published the book, and it became a great success.